Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe and like. And please visit us at barrykibrick.com, where you'll see all the ways that you can become a patron of our mission and help us continue to build a community of seekers who quest for knowledge, information, and most importantly, wisdom.
Private Joker, do you believe in the Virgin Mary?
Sir, no, sir!
Well, Private Joker, I don't believe I heard you correctly.
Sir, the private said no, sir!
Well, you little maggot, you make me want to vomit! You communist heathen, you had best sound off that you love the Virgin Mary, or I'm gonna stomp your guts out. Now, you do love the Virgin Mary, don't you?
Sir, negative, sir!
Private Joker, are you trying to offend me?
Sir, negative, sir! Sir, the private believes that any answer he gives will be wrong, and the senior drill instructor will beat him harder if he reverses himself, sir!
Who's your squad leader, scumbag?
Sir, the private squad leader is Private Snowball, sir!
Private Snowball!
Sir, Private Snowball reporting his honor, sir!
Private Snowball, you're fired. Private Joker is promoted to squad leader.
Sir, aye, sir!
Today on Between the Lines, an actor whose range in films is only matched by his diversity of talents, Matthew Modine. Welcome, I'm Barry Kibrick. Matthew has appeared in over 40 movies, as varied as Any Given Sunday to The Dark Knight Rises. But he is best known for his iconic role as Private Joker, the central character of Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. Besides starring in this classic film, Matthew kept a journal of his experience that became an award-winning book, Full Metal Jacket Diary. Now, in a groundbreaking move, he takes this diary to the next level, turning it into an app for the iPad, combining narration, never-before-seen photos, and personal letters. He's created a deeply immersive experience filled with insights into the genius mind of Stanley Kubrick.
I'm a writer today because I was a reader when I was 11 years old, and it was...
You do not need to prove your state of happiness to anybody.
Most of these speeches were as much as a month in preparation.
Characters, the heroes in this book, are seekers of truth in a story that involves a lot of
You
corruption.
don't get a chance to really talk about what's real, and it's the perfect movie.
Matthew, it is a true pleasure. As you can tell, everyone in the green room to the set, they are all excited to have you here, and so am I. Welcome to the show, Matthew.
It's a pleasure to be here, Barry.
Now, I'm going to start because this just happened yesterday. If you don't mind, I found out from Warner Brothers when I asked for a clip that they got the brand new release of Full Metal Jacket, the 25th anniversary on Blu-ray, and not only is there a way for them to get your app in here, but as we just talked about, you actually wrote the booklet that now comes with this.
That's right. They asked me to write something, and so I decided that what I'd do is write about that first moment that I'd heard about Stanley's death, because this is the 25th anniversary of the film coming out. Because Stanley's life meant so much to so many people, he had such a profound impact on so many people that I don't know why, but I thought that talking about finding out about his death from Michael Hare would be a good place to start, and to discuss his impact on my life and certainly, you know, millions of people around the world.
Well, that's what I found so interesting in the book is when I first got it, I was just reading through it. And then I realized I saw the play button and I hit play, and what's so cool is you get to hear your voice take you through it as well. And it was amazing how immersed I got into it when I started listening to it especially.
Yeah, thank you. When I was asked, Adam Rakoff, who used to work for Apple Computers, he was one of the geniuses, not a genius behind the bar, but actually one of the real geniuses that was working for and answering to Steve Jobs and doing promotional work for Apple Computer. He'd seen my book. I'd done a talk at the Apple Store in Soho in New York City about things that were made on a Mac. So that was what the talks were designed to focus on. So I came in to talk about making my book on a Mac, And Adam just fell in love with this book, and he thought, what a wonderful idea to take the book, which was only limited to 20,000 copies, and turn it into something new, turn it into a deeply immersive app, to give people the opportunity to really experience what it was like to work on Full Metal Jacket. So he came to me and he pitched this idea of recording my voice, of creating a musical soundtrack, of sound effects and characterizations of the people that were involved in the making of the film. In addition to that, taking the negatives that I took, the 2¼ by 2¼ Rolleiflex camera negatives, and doing high-res scans of them so that you could open them up and look at them in detail on an iPad app, on an iPad, excuse me. And all these things, and make it something that was extraordinary, something that people have never seen before, and turn it into something which is now being called an appumentary. And I said, well, that sounds like a great idea, so long as that we make something that Stanley Kubrick would be proud of, that he would say that this is really cool. So Adam began working with a team of people to create this app, and with that being the goal, to always create something that Stanley Kubrick would be proud of and thought was beautiful. And I think they accomplished it. It's quite extraordinary. And it's interesting how folks in Hollywood now are looking at the Full Metal Jacket Diary app as a wonderful way to expand the experience of say, like a Christopher Nolan film.
Well, Matthew, I could also see why it would be that way, because you get to, it's almost like watching one of those, stories after you watch the film. You get to really explore and go deeper into Kubrick, for instance. The things that I learned that you put in this diary really not only expand the experience, but deeply get you to understand how the experience is even created.
That's right, yeah. When I was getting ready to go off to London to work with Stanley Kubrick on this film, I couldn't find a person who didn't have some kind of knowledge about Stanley Kubrick, or some kind of personal experience, or some book that they had read about him. And it was becoming very, very frightening. That and you'd see these images of Stanley Kubrick, with that intense look with the furrowed brow, and I felt a bit like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, of going off to try to find and go to work with the all-powerful Oz, and because that's the perception that you had of him, was this kind of terrifying man. And once I got working with him and got to know him, and the experience of who he was as a human being, that you realize that the impression that he'd created of himself and put out to the world was that of the all-powerful Oz. He was the person who generated it. But behind the curtain, he was, when Toto goes down and pulls the curtain back on The Wizard of Oz, you find that he's just a gentle man who, in Stanley Kubrick's case, was just somebody who wanted to make films and wanted to make beautiful art, and had to create an environment for him to be able to do that.
Well, that's when you actually open the app with the definition of Kubrick, so to speak, as, what is he? Genius, you couldn't say, but you said artist. Artist,
Absolutely.
yes. And in fact, you even mentioned he's not only an artist, but family, his pets, his friends, all of it is part of his art. So it's a very deep insight into this man who does have this persona.
Yeah, what you realize is the difficulty of being an artist is to create an environment for you to be able to hear your own voice. There's so much noise in the world, there's so much distraction. And when you're trying to create something as a painter, as a musician, as a writer, as a film director, that you have to try to create an environment to protect yourself so that you can not be influenced by all these outside forces, but to be able to hear that voice, that little voice, which is so easy to crush inside of yourself, so that you can create your art. And that is what I believe that Stanley Kubrick did by leaving New York, leaving Los Angeles, and going to London, and moving out into the countryside at Chittickbury, was to create an environment for himself and for his family to be able to focus and create films that were uniquely Stanley Kubrick films. That I think that's why his films are so extraordinary, was that he figured out a way to make films without all that outside influence, without a studio system, without producers telling him what his film should be about.
Yet at the same time, when you can't help but read the diary and realize that even Stanley, although has the complete vision, I get the sense sometimes that he's also experimenting as he's going on. In fact, there's two things in particular that made me realize that. Was one, the ending. There's a great scene in the app that is actually, to me, a scene in the movie. I would almost want you to play it out, where he has an ending that you fall in love with, but it is not the ending that we see in the movie. And he creates the environment that you literally come around and give him the ending he wants.
Yeah, but that means that you have to create an environment for you to be able to explore, to be able to try something and discover that it doesn't work. And so many times on other film productions, you don't have the luxury of time. So Stanley Kubrick created an environment for himself to be able to explore, to be able to experiment, to be able to not know. I mean, that's one of the most important things for an artist to have, is to be able to not know what the solution to the problem is, but to be willing to step out to explore it.
Oh, you can see he does it when he gets you to come around and realize the emotional aspect of what he wants the ending to be, even though you could tell he wasn't playing off you. In other words, he was sincere. He was struggling with it. And so it wasn't just a game to get you in the mood, although I think he does that too sometimes, plays games.
Yeah.
But he did that, and also his belief in what you needed to do. You were so concerned of playing the role,
Yeah.
and Stanley so concerned of you being the character, not even being the role, the being of it. In fact, when Lee Emery does his drill sergeant routine, he was only the advisor.
That's right.
But Stanley realized that's a man who is that character.
Yeah, it's so important not to play, but to be. Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing for every artist to discover. That there's an old saying where they say, try being yourself, everyone else is taken. Understanding who you are and becoming yourself, embracing yourself, loving yourself is a very important thing for all of us, but particularly for artists.
But you bring up something, I'll read it directly. The duality of man is what you're talking about. And here in the film, in fact, you say these words, I've been split in half, I've been cleaved. I'm sorry, I said the film, I mean in the app. And you felt that you were almost living this duality. So sometimes being oneself is having a duality.
Yeah, well, you can't escape the duality. I mean, it exists inside of us, and whether we look at it as a yin and yang, or as Carl Jung said, this aggression and xenophobia on the one hand, and altruism and cooperation on the other, that we have two hemispheres in our brain that are constantly at battle with one another about logic and creativity. So
now, another scene that Stanley has problems with is probably the most powerful button of the scene. In fact, what I have the clip of you walking around the barracks. You sense something is wrong, and you sense it's with Pyle. By the way, you cast Vince D'Onofrio for Stanley as Pyle. You can tell that story too, but you sense you're walking around. I can't show the scene itself because it is little. This is terrible. It's not a pun, but it's mind-blowing. Yeah. The scene is, and it literally is. And you got Stanley to figure out how to even do that. He knew what he wanted, but you can tell he couldn't put his finger on it. And that's why by opening up to the creative forces around him, he really finally got a chance to see it, and you helped bring it to his attention.
Yeah, it was because my father was a drive-in theater manager. I grew up watching, thousands of films, and quite a few bad ones, because drive-in movie theaters, they played a lot of bad movies, a lot of B movies, and Stanley, he didn't know how he was going to have Vince D'Onofrio's head explode, and he said, "What's the best headshot that you've ever seen in a film where somebody gets shot in the face?" And I said, "Oh, without doubt, To Live and Die in L.A." I said, this guy kicks the door open and he's got a shotgun and he sticks it in the guy's face and boom, the guy's head blows up. And Stanley goes, oh, okay. And a couple of days go by and Stanley goes, come here, I want to show you something. And we used to edit films on, 35 millimeter film on a thing called a Steenbeck. Now we do it all digitally on computers. But so it was this giant thing, and he'd had it put into the back of a truck, of a cube truck, a moving truck. And he goes, and he had the film, and he put it on. He goes, is this the scene? And he had the scene from the movie there. I mean, it was extraordinary to me. It was blowing my mind that this was happening in the back of a truck. And he showed me the scene from To Live and Die in LA, and boom, there it was. I said, that's it, isn't it great? And he goes, yeah, when I watch it at,
you did it frame by frame, actually.
Frame by frame, and you see this guy kick the door in. He turned the volume off too. So now that you're not influenced by explosive and music and things like that. You're just watching technically how they accomplish this shotgun in the guy's face. And you could see frame by frame that there was somebody standing with a bucket full of guts that were supposed to be like brains and stuff. And they must have just thrown it in this guy's face. And you see it entering from the side of the frame, and it goes all over the guy's face. And he goes, yeah, it's good. He goes, we could do it better. He goes, I cut a couple frames out. And then we started designing this tube with this special effects department of putting the guts into a tube and a pressurized air. And I mean, it was extraordinary how it evolved. But he just needed the spark of inspiration to figure out how to solve the problem to then accomplish it.
But isn't that what you said before? It harkens back to it. You have to be open for the spark. That is where the genius lies almost, is the openness to not only, allow yourself to see the spark, but then when you do, how can you then create? Because there's two parts to craft and art and genius. And it's actually, there's two parts to genius, and that's craft and art. And that's what he was able to do.
Absolutely. That's why AMPAS, the Association of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, that even the people that created this understood that it was art and science, that you need those two things in order to accomplish filmmaking.
Matthew, I want to just make sure that people get an opportunity to fully experience both the 25th anniversary Blu-ray edition of Full Metal Jacket, along with your app, which is inserted. There's an actual way they can get it right within the DVD, and also you wrote the
forward.
The forward to it. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah, there's a beautiful forward about Stanley Kubrick's life and his passing, with photographs that appear in the Full Metal Jacket Diary book and the Full Metal Jacket Diary app. The Warner Brothers has been very generous in including my artwork in the Blu-ray version of Full Metal Jacket Diary. But you can also, the Full Metal Jacket Diary iPad app is only available on iTunes.
Well, and let me also let them know then where they can go even further as well, and they can look at this as well on www.wbshop.com, and that's for the Blu-ray edition from Warner Brothers if they're interested in that. And they could also, even another way is on Facebook at the Full Metal Jacket official site. So it's facebook.com/, Full Metal Jacket official, and they'll be able to get that. So there's all sorts of ways that they can go deeper and deeper into Kubrick's work and your work.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one more question then, Matthew, because not one more, I've got a few more, but one thing that caught my attention was you said acting is like playing tennis. You could only be as good as your partner.
If you're a terrific tennis player and you're playing against somebody who doesn't have a great game, what good is it to be able to serve 120 mile an hour serve or have a great return and backhand if the person can't hit the ball back to you? So you always want to try to work with people who have as good a game as you or better, because they're going to make you better. You're going to get the opportunity to show the skills that you have. So when they return the ball, it gives you the chance to show you how you can hit it back to them. I've just been really, really lucky to work with some extraordinary artists, and they've made me not just a better filmmaker and better artist, but a better man.
You said that it was all worth it because the film itself was a struggle. But you say it's worth working with him, and I think the reason is what you give later is when he uses the joking line about the longest line out of a restaurant is not always mean it's the best restaurant. And you said it reminded you of this line. You didn't give it to anybody's credit or anything, but it was this: don't give them what they want. Give them what they don't know they want yet. Yeah. That seems to be a mission of yours as an actor, and definitely a mission of Kubrick's as a director.
Yeah, otherwise you're just pandering. And what do we discover if people are just telling us things that we already know? That it's that road less traveled, it's that path that it's so exciting to go down that has been unnavigated. What a wonderful place to go and to come back and share the stories of a journey to some place that nobody's ever been to. And then having the ability as a great storyteller to come back and paint the picture for those of us that don't go on that journey, that live vicariously through the adventure of an adventurer.
What's cool about what you do in the diary and in the app is you give us these little insights into the adventurer. One of them I thought was constantly mentioning that Stanley had a little routine when he was puzzled, especially, or when somehow he couldn't get the shot he wanted, and you call it look, pull, rub. Yeah. And I'm assuming it was, look at what's going on, pull up those pants again, like you said, and tug on the beard, right?
Yeah. It was a routine. And you knew when he went through that routine that he was trying to figure it out, and so you didn't want to try to bother him while he was in that process, because he's looking for the inspiration, looking for the idea, and sometimes we couldn't find it, and the wonderful thing was that those moments would lead us to his Winnebago, where we would have these conversations about, how would I solve that problem? For instance, one of them was when I meet Adam Baldwin's character, Animal Mother, in the pagoda. What was scripted was that he comes over and starts saying those things to me, like, "Are you a real photographer? You seen any combat?" And he's giving me a lot of crap, and so I take my M16 as scripted and I put it under his chin and I say, "Listen, I got twice as many hours in country as you, and if you don't, I won't swear, but if you don't get out of my face, I'm going to blow your head off," or something like that. And so we did it several times, several dozen times maybe. And
it could have been several hundred times, according to the amount of takes that Stanley takes.
Yeah, and Stanley went through that routine of, rub, tug, and a pull. It sounds kind of pornographic. And he goes, "Let's go in the trailer." And we went over and he goes, "So Matthew, where'd you grow up?" I said, "Utah." "Yeah, right. So you grew up in Utah. What would you do if some guy like Adam Baldwin came up to you and challenged you the way that he does?" And I said, "A guy like Adam, I'd make a joke." He goes, "What? He's a big guy. He's a big, strong guy." I said, "Yeah, but those guys aren't dangerous. It's the little guys. It's the guys like Arliss Howard, the fire plugs. Those are the guys that are dangerous. Those are the guys that'll take your head off. I've been in a lot of fights, Stanley, and guys like Adam Baldwin, they're not dangerous at all." And he goes, "Really?" He goes, "So you'd make a joke." And so that evolved into the only after you eat the peanuts out of my...
Oh, right. Again, we can't say it. But by the way, I'm amazed they were even to find clips they could give me to air here.
Right,
so.
Yeah, it's true, Yeah, so we found some great stuff in Gus Hasford's book, The Short Timers, that we could pull from there. And I was really happy to find one because I wanted to do, I thought it needed another John Wayne quote, because I had the one at the beginning of the movie, "Is that you, John Wayne? Is this me?" And so I was able to get the, "Well, only after you eat the peanuts out of my," well, I can't say. No, I can't say it, Out of my poop, I probably could say.
Okay, I'll decide later if I have to bleep it or not, but we got the picture, that's for sure. Yeah. And again, what is that once again but opening up the door? Actually, not only the door, but the whole scene, the whole kit and caboodle. Open it up, then listen. Listening, that's what your dad said. You can't think and when you're always talking, Stanley likes to listen.
Yeah.
And he reminds me of what your dad told you. And it's that listening then that allows him to absorb, and you yourself as an actor.
Yeah.
When you had problems, you would try to quiet yourself, try to listen. Where can I find that reasoning?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, Matthew, I'll tell you, it has been such a joy. I'm going to end with words from yourself in your own app, and it says, "Only let in that which will help me be strong." Thank you, Matthew, for staying strong and being with us today.
Thank you very much, Barry.
It's my pleasure. And thank you all for joining us. Now, before Matthew leaves, I'd like to leave you with these words from the Full Metal Jacket Diary app. They're spoken by Matthew, but the words are Kubrick's. "You know, there are no bad ideas, only better ones. The rule is we don't judge. We just keep moving forward until we find the right answer." I'm Barry Kibrick. Between the good ideas or only the better ones, keep moving forward and you will find the answer. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you.
My pleasure.